here today with Kenneth Brian. Kenneth is a singer, guitarist, and songwriter for the Kenneth Brian Band. He has toured or shared stages with Blackberry Smoke, Lucinda Williams, ZZ Top, Leonard Skinner, Steve Winwood. The list goes on and on. He has worked with the Allman Brothers Band producer Johnny Sandlin in the past, and his most recent effort had pre-production by Tom Petty drummer Steve Ferroni and Petty guitarist Mike Campbell. On February 25th, Kenneth released his latest album, Keys to the Kingdom, on Southern Shift Records, and it's a doozy, my friend. It's great stuff. Thanks for being here, man.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I know what I hear when I put this thing on. How would you describe it? What will people hear when they hear Kenneth Brian music?
Man, I mean, it's rock and roll, first and foremost. But I mean, I come from that area of the country where, that just Southern rock, swampy rock kind of, everything's mixed down here, country, blues and jazz and everything. And we just sort of mix it up and don't think about it and just, put it out there in that kind of old school rock and roll fashion, man. And so that's, straight ahead, raw rock and roll that with a lot of guitar work, a lot of slide and stuff like that, man. So it's gonna hit you one way or the other.
Yeah. Oh yeah, man. I love that swampy feel and that slide. There's there's the slide players. You're a great one. There's that's the area, and you're in Jacksonville, of course.
It's crazy. Like I'm in Gainesville, which is about, or I'm from Gainesville, which is about an hour from Jacksonville. And I just, I saw my buddy, Dwayne Betts there is from Allman Betts Band, and Dickie Betts' son. He's doing a record over at Derek Trucks' place. And Derek's one of the greatest slide players that ever lived. And I mean, but all these guys came out of this area. Even if people don't know it. I mean, Dwayne Allman and Greg Allman, they grew up in Daytona. And then you've got, all the Tom Petty guys from here. You got Bo Diddley. He lived right down the road. You got, Stephen Stills went to high school here. Two of the guys from the Eagles, Don Felder and Bernie Ledden. I mean, there's 9 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame members from one little town. And then there's all the Leonard Skinner stuff and the Outlaws and Blackfoot, all that stuff that happened. I don't know, man, it's kind of an eclectic thing. Like it's a different vibe than even like I grew up here and in Alabama, and I worked in Alabama for a long time too, and it's a different vibe from even there because there's more mixing going on with styles and everything. So
right, yeah, I mean there is like you say, I mean all those names, all those great musicians from that one small area. It's and it hasn't really stopped, has it? You still have lots of great players in
absolutely that area. Man. And all those guys grew up in like Northeast Gainesville. I mean, like one little neighborhood, man. And it was just on the like you were just talking about Chicago. Northeast is just on that virgin on the other side of the tracks, and so there was a lot of mixing going on back in the day before it was cool between little black kids and little white kids and music and stuff. And that's where that the thing really happened in a cool way. And that was same thing for me growing up. And even in in the 90s here, there was a huge punk rock and metal scene and all kinds of stuff going on in Gainesville. You got the University, UF. So you could go see, there'd be like some of the guys that played with Grant Parsons playing country rock, or some of the guys that played with Skinner or Blackfoot. But then there'd be like a metal band and a reggae band also playing, and it's a punk band or a street play. There's a lot of different bands from the 90s that came out of here, late 90s, hot water music and all that kind of stuff. And so there was like just sort of an eclectic thing going on. But it's all happening in a sleepy little southern town. You think of Gainesville's like, I remember reading a Tom Petty interview and they were like, so you grew up in Florida, did you surf a lot? And he's like, no, man, I'm from the part like with the cows in it. Like you got the state, we're in the middle, we're right below Georgia and Alabama, and we're in that area. It's still like old school Florida, man. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the rest. I mean, the beach and everything, that's all cool, but this is like still intact like it was,
Yeah.
The music kind of follows suit with that. There's, even if you have a street punk band, there's still going to be some kind of like, swampy, kind of Southern rock vibe to it, or the guy that's got a street punk band that I grew up with also has a country acoustic duo thing that he does. it's
Right.
kind of, it's interesting where you might not get that in Cleveland or something where like if you have a death metal band, you just have a death metal band.
Right.
You don't
Right.
have like a folk thing too that you do with your dad on the weekend.
Right. Right. And that was cool. It reminds me of Hank 3.
Yeah, man.
I went to see him, and he does a strictly traditional country set, and
Absolutely.
it's a beautiful thing, and it's honors and respects that country tradition. And then he breaks and he comes back and he does a thrash speed metal hardcore heavy shit. You know what I mean?
He's a cool guy. When I moved to Nashville when I was 20 years old, I was playing guitar with a bunch of different people, and Andy Gibson, his longtime steel player, became a good friend with mine, and I stayed with Andy. And then Hank 3 and all those guys hooked me up when I first got there. Hey man, you can get a gig here. Here's this girl, whoever that does it. And they were the ones that really hooked me up when I got up there. I ended up playing his grandfather in a theater production in Austin, Texas. I played Hank Williams Sr. for like 8 months, and then I did some touring with Hank 3. It was a while ago. I mean, it was like 15 years ago, but that's that the way they do it's kind of like they do the country thing, then they'll do like he does like a street punk thing, and then he gets into some heavy metal.
Mhm.
And I've never been able to separate. I mean, not that I do a bunch of heavy metal on stage, but I mean blues, country, jazz, that whole thing where heavy rock, where it all mixes together. If you're a guitar player, I mean, it doesn't matter if you grew up listening to Tony Rice playing bluegrass or Randy Rhoads playing metal or Dwayne Allman playing slide or whatever. I mean, you just hear something and you're like, damn, that's wow. I mean, you hear some Hungarian jazz player and you're like, holy, that's amazing.
Right.
And so I don't know, man. It's kind of like the things for me that are the best and with everything are definitely all mixed up,
Mm-hmm.
and my heroes like Tom Petty and guys like that. They just took that thing and they didn't give a damn about what genre it was or whatever. They kind of created their own genre, really.
Yeah. Yeah, and I get that from Keys to the Kingdom. I listen to it and I'm getting a whole bunch of different stuff. It doesn't stay in one place.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, it's really cool. Hey, wherever it goes and whatever sounds great,
Totally, man. And that's how I feel about it. Now you got your music business people that are like, now Kenneth, you should do just a straight country record, or you should do just a straight, because then we could put it over here or there. And it's like, well, my brain, I don't really think like that, man. So, it's when you grow up with it, it's not, it's like when I moved to Nashville, I was a writer for a while at Sony ATV. And if you grow up on a tractor, the last thing you want to do is write songs about being on a tractor,
Right.
and if you grew up in the country, there's just as much back then Outkast and Pantera as there was George Strait. So you know what I mean? So it's kind of like it's a more of a realistic approach, I think, man, to just go and hit it, and just I think if you're thinking about music while you're making it, if you're thinking about fitting it into something, you're not gonna make good music,
Yeah.
It's just it'll sound like somebody else.
But it's unnatural. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now you wrote Keys to the Kingdom while you were living in Hollywood and Malibu. And that's and that's over the last 5 years. And you say that the songs are heavily influenced by your experiences in Southern California. Can you be more specific like that? Is it the overall vibe or specific experiences that you had?
Well, I mean, the vibe definitely got in there. It's more of like like when I got out there, I met, a few different people, and one of the people we met, we were at Starbucks. We were on tour with Lucinda Williams. We were staying at her house in Laurel Canyon, and we went down to like get some coffee. And Steve Perry from Journey happened to be in Starbucks in front of us in line, and we're like, "What?" And so we ended up talking to him.
Only in Hollywood.
I know, man. And so he was really super cool, man. And he was like, "Oh, what are you guys doing? Yeah. Hey, give me a record." And so, and then he keeps in touch, and then he invited us to a few different things. And one of these gatherings that he was having, Steve Ferroni was there. And so, we met Steve. Steve started playing with me a little bit, introduced me to the rest of the Heartbreakers, Scotty, at first, and then later on Mike Campbell and Tom and those guys they helped shape the sound a little bit. We're like, I come from like let's just Les Paul and Tweed Pro and thicken it up, and they were like, hey, why don't you use a a strat on this song? Why don't you, use a blackface? So like a lot of that shaping of the sound is, happened because of those guys. But just living in California is a different vibe. I mean, it's like a different country from Florida or Alabama or Chicago where you're at. I mean, it really is, man. I mean, if you don't think so, just look at the taxes. but, but it's, it's a totally different vibe from where I grew up. And then I was living in West Hollywood, right behind the Whiskey. Like the Whiskey A Go Go's right here. Wow. There's a parking lot. I lived on a rooftop apartment with my girlfriend. And this apartment, like Jim Morrison had lived in there with Pamela, his girlfriend. Like Leonard Cohen had hung out there. Wow. Guns N' Roses. The lady that I rented from is an old sculptor, is a sculptor lady, photographer, and she would tell me stories about Axl Rose hanging out there and him telling her, or her telling him like, you're never gonna make it. There's so many singers here. You should just go back to wherever you're from. So I don't know, man. I was all up in that, and then I moved out to Malibu in a little guest house. Nothing fancy. I mean, just found something I could afford, and it was really awesome, man. I'm living out there on the beach, and then a fire came through and took everything out about a year later. Destroyed our house. Kind of just, man, everything that's going on with, whatever your opinion of it is, it's definitely the climate is changing. Everything's too dry out there. It's not managed well, and it all burned up. All those factors. So, man, and that was like, wow. I got all my guitars and amps out and lost everything else, all the clothes I had, everything from tours all over these, bam. Wow. And so that going through that and going through a lot of different, I mean, I had to evacuate from like 3 other fires. That was interesting. But and trying to like juggle the whole, playing and writing and doing this album at the same time. And,
right.
And, it's just I got like the magical Hollywood thing, and then I got the right. And I got kind of hit in the gut, in the face, and had to get back up. And it's just sort of all that made it into the record, man. And when I started doing the album, we went over to Ferrone's place and started working on songs, and he got Mike Campbell to come over, who was one of my heroes and one of the greatest guitar players I ever lived. Actually, he's playing at Gainesville this weekend, the Dirty Knobs, man. I'm gonna go see him.
Awesome.
And he helped me get these songs together and came up with parts, and then he got a gig playing with Fleetwood Mac. Wow, crazy, and he went off and did that. He was going to produce this record, but he wasn't able to do it because of that. So
all right.
I don't know, man, just like being around all these guys and being around, the guys from out in the desert, Dave Ketching, guys from Eagles of Death Metal and Queens of Stone Age. They just have a different way of doing things and a different vibe. But it's similar to Florida or Bama, but it's just like it's got its own kind of flavor going on. And it all made it in there, man. It ended up just punchier and raw, and but at the same time with the Heartbreakers guys and the Tom Petty influence, and they always did raw, but with a little polished, and little, just enough to make it shine. So
yeah. Oh, and it shine, it did for sure. Now, the record feels a little more Mississippi than it does Malibu. Would it have been different if you recorded in, say, Virginia or Gainesville, Jacksonville?
Man, I don't know. I mean, whatever you are is always going to come through. I wasn't trying to do anything different with who I am. I was just trying to capture the sound that we were doing at the time. So actually, like, we recorded that out in Joshua Tree at Dave Ketching's Rancho de la Luna, which is an amazing place out in Joshua Tree, man. And it's just crazy. A bunch of freaks out there in the right way. And they're just cool guys that, have a good place. But they're all sort of like Southern expats too. I think like Dave's from Memphis, and so they kind of have the thing we grew up with where they're like, just record it. There's nothing fancy going on. You just try to capture lightning in a bottle and get the song in 2 or 3 takes. And I actually did a lot of the vocals. We did everything in 4 days there, but then I came back. I redid some of the vocals in Alabama at Johnny Sandlin's studio in Decatur. Okay. And I, the guy that engineered it, I flew him out. Of all the people, I flew my guy from Alabama, Jeremy Stevens, out to engineer in the desert, man. So just because I feel comfortable around those people, I think that's important. Like, just like Elvis, not that I'm anything like Elvis or anything. I'm just saying, like, he always had for better or worse, he had like 15, 20 people around him all the time.
Yeah.
And yeah, a lot of those people were kissing his ass and probably had everything to do with killing him. But they made him feel comfortable in what he was doing. You know, he didn't have to like,
Right.
you know, and so I think it was good to have some down home people around, you know.
Yeah, people that you can trust to steer you in the right direction, at least musically for sure. Yeah, and yeah, that's great. And these are people who know what they're doing. Jeremy
Absolutely.
Stevens, he's not a rookie.
He worked with Johnny for years and years. I think one of the first things he did, he was like, you know, doing an internship with Decatur High School, and he went over to Johnny's, and I think the second thing he did, he got to work on a Greg Allman record, and I think he was hooked from that, you know.
Yeah.
And it was like back when nobody was getting along, and Greg was like in the limo, and John, they were, you know, they'd known each other since they were 16, and it was like he got the full music experience with like the amazing record and the crazy vibes and the people's interpersonal BS and everything else. But he's the best engineer I've ever worked with that's living. Johnny Sandlin and David Bianco were amazing, and you know they're both gone now. So yeah. I just sort of try to learn from all those guys over the years, man. Yeah. So me and Jeremy mixed this, and you know, I mean, I wouldn't know what I was doing if it wasn't for those guys. So I'm fortunate to have been around them.
Yeah, those are great mentors to have for sure. Now I know you have one killer guitar, the 52 Les Paul. Crazy, man. Tell us about the guitars you play on the record. Is it one guitar? Do we hear that guitar?
Yeah, let me grab it. Hold on a second.
All right, man.
I haven't done that yet, so let me see. Here we go. I was just messing with it last night. I work on all my own stuff, but this is a 52 Les Paul that was refinished by Gibson in '59, and these are like real PAFs, man, like, you know, crazy, right? I mean, so I was just adjusting things, and you know, I'm working on something. I mean, there's the original, you know, Gray Tiger caps and all that. Mainly what I do if I'm recording is like, you know, if I'm not flying somewhere, you know, and I have this guitar, like on Keys of the Kingdom, I used this guitar on 97% of what was going on, probably, man. This guitar into a Tweed Pro, an old Tweed Pro steel amp, like what Don Helms from Hank Williams Sr. would have played steel out of in 1949. And it's got a JBL in it, and I just use something to boost that. And I'll run like a reverb unit and not much else in between, man. Pretty much just like the straight up, you know, pure thing, man. And this thing just, you know, it just sort of has a grand piano sound. And I have a bunch of different Les Pauls, an 81 Custom, and a bunch of, you know, I think on that album I used the 81 Custom Les Paul. Looks like a Randy Rhoads guitar on some of them. And I have an old Birdland, which is a short scale L5 type of, you know, it's a 57. It's like,
that's beautiful too.
And I didn't pay big money for these guitars, man. I didn't, especially at the time, I didn't have, you know, a pot to, you know, anyway. So these are all gifts from God, man. I mean, you know, I read about people paying $300,000 for a Les Paul or something, and like, then where I come from, like $150,000 is a house. Well, it's creeping on up, but
right.
I don't know, man. But basically it's just a Les Paul type of guitar. I did use a B-Bender Telecaster on a couple songs. And when I grew up in Gainesville, there was a guy named Mike Boulware who owned a store called ProFrets, and he played a B-Bender. And I learned from him all that stuff and all those kind of country licks. But man, I think I used a Marshall one time and some James Trussart guitars on a few tracks, steel top. But I mean, mainly it's just this guitar into that Tweed Pro. And I don't know, man, it's just, it just works for me.
It's magical, I'm sure. It sounds great on the record for sure.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. How did you acquire that guitar? Is there a story behind it, or did you just walk into a store and there it was?
I was living in Nashville, Tennessee, and I guess it was I just found the appraisal for it. I think it was 2010, and we had just done Welcome to Alabama, and it was about to come out. And my friend Chip Young got inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame. He was a thumb picker kind of guy. He played with Jerry Reed a lot. He played with Elvis.
Nice.
He played on like that song Jolene,
Wow.
Dolly Parton. He's the guy doing the boom da dun da dun, thing on the top. And so we went to go to his induction, and there was like Scotty Moore, all these guys from Elvis, and all these different pickers there. So afterwards, we went over to Gruen Guitars, man, and it was still downtown on Broadway. And I used to go in there, like when I first moved there, I didn't have, 2 dimes to rub together, and you could walk in there and there'd be like a 30s L5, and they'd be like, pick it up, play it,
Right.
They didn't care, and so I would always go in there and check guitars out. This guitar had been on the wall for years, and I didn't know much about it, and it had a huge price tag on it. But then it was like in that time, 2010, it was a bad time for, it's like now, gas was
right. Economy.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost as bad as now.
Right.
Not quite. But anyway, man, so it had gone down in price a couple times, and I thought, man, I like to play that thing. So I went upstairs, I plugged it in, and I just couldn't stop playing. And I thought, oh man. And I said, look, I'm going to see what I can do. I can sell 2 or 3 guitars and an amp and come back. And I made an offer that I thought they'd never accept. And they did. And I went and I sold some things, and Johnny Sandlin bought a guitar from me. And I went back up there with the cash, man. And I walked out with this thing. And I think I've played it every single day since then,
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah, man. But it was one of those things. If I had to rebuy it now, I don't think I could.
Yeah. See that? Yeah.
I was reading about, Tony Rice, getting his Clarence White sold D28 Martin that he played forever. And that thing's probably worth, even if it wasn't his, it'd be worth, 300 grand or something. He got it for, $500 off of some guy. It's amazing, like which guitars fall into which hands and stuff. And a lot of times money doesn't have anything to do with it. Thank God.
Yeah.
Because, despite what people like to portray about their music career and everything, I don't care if you're selling 1 million records. It still ain't like, it's not 1975 anymore, man. We're not making millions of dollars.
Right.
Doing that, when you get paid 1/100th of a penny for a stream, or 1/10 of a penny now,
Right.
You're not exactly like banking, So,
Right.
So it's kind of like just a total blessing, man, to have these, these instruments and amps. But I work on my own stuff, man, like all my own amps and guitars, and I love doing it. My grandpa was a coal miner in West Virginia, but he learned how to he could do complex physics, and he learned how to do repair equipment in the Army, and he showed me a lot of stuff. And my dad's, the same. I mean, he could fix and do the roof by himself with a bunch of ropes and a truck. And so when it came to fixing stuff, man, it was like, well, I'll give it a shot. And I screwed up enough things until I figured out what I was doing. So
Right.
Nothing like working on a 52 Les Paul and having to get it right,
Right. Yeah, and that's cool, and it brings you closer, I think, to I think every instrument, and in my experience, has its personality.
Absolutely.
It sits there on the wall, and that all these hands have touched it, or it's been to places, it's traveled, or there's it's in the wood,
like this one. And they're not making something that they did at Gibson between 1952 and 1962. They had some magical crop of wood or something, like Stradivarius had or something. And yeah, but man, some of them you pick up, like this one I picked up, I call this guitar Red Cloud because of the way it looks. And man, it just felt good. It felt right. But I have a buddy that has a 1960 Les Paul that has a similar finish, and it hasn't really been played. It's still got the tags and everything, and it's probably worth, $250,000, but it doesn't feel that good. It's neat, but it doesn't feel like, he's always trying to buy this one from me.
Right.
People tried to buy this one from me, and Billy Gibbons too, man. So I know I'm onto something.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Pretty heavy.
Yeah.
I think they offered me 50 and $100.
Gotta love Billy. He's great. Now you've done several songs that have been featured in TV and film. You didn't write specifically for TV and film.
No, I don't.
Right. Yeah. Would you like to write for TV and film? Probably not, right?
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's what I figured.
I mean, when I grew up, then the world's changed, like especially because you have to make the only used to make money selling records and stuff, and now kids have bands and they're trying to like make a song for a Subaru commercial or something, and God bless them, man. That because it's like that's tough to do and still make a good song. I just have done the thing. I write about my life and I write the way I do, and I even had a hard time writing. I had a writing deal in Nashville. I had a hard time doing that, man, because I'd sit down with 2 or 3 other writers and somebody would have an idea and you'd have to expand on it, and not everybody's on the same page. These
Right.
songs that have got into movies and TV and stuff have just been songs that I wrote that were out on albums that they contacted me about. I didn't shop or have somebody looking to get songs in movies or TV at all at that point, and it just happened. So,
Yeah.
which is amazing, and that's it. So there's some stuff came out on Netflix on Bloodline, that show Bloodline, that was actually about like the Florida Keys. And then I got a couple songs in this new John Travolta, Bruce Willis movie, Paradise City, and that's coming out. And those, so and then I'm sure there'll be more stuff, man. It's just things. I think it just fit with what they were doing. So.
And it's cool that it happened organically for you. You didn't have to fit into anything. You were doing what you do, and they appreciated it, and it fit what they were doing.
Absolutely, it can
That's
be
great.
done, man. Like it absolutely can be done. I mean, when we first moved to Hollywood, we were living in this house on stilts up in the like Hollywood Hills, and it was just like the last rickety falling down place in the neighborhood. And like literally, man, our neighbors were like Eva Longoria and Little Wayne and Justin Bieber lived up the hill. And so we're living in this funky old house that's falling down, and I got a call one day from I think it was Sony, and I thought, oh God, do I owe them money from like a demo from 20 years ago? This lady wanted to use the song Blackbird for that show, for the show Bloodline I was just talking about.
Right.
And I said, wow, okay. And she said, I just need to, speak to I need to get permission from the songwriter, the publishing, and the label. And I said, well, you're talking to all 3 of them right now. Because on that album, and I mean, I recorded that, I wrote it, I put it out myself. It was when we were on tour with Lucinda Williams, and we wanted to have something out that was representative of what was going on at that time. And so, man, it was as easy as that. So sometimes that does happen. I think you have to do a whole lot of stuff and play a whole lot of shows and keep going and put all the, just like the rest of life, put all your problems behind you and keep moving for things like that to happen.
Yeah. That's cool.
But they do,
Yep.
Faith.
Yeah.
As my friend Hunt Sales always says, keep the faith.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about some of the ink you got. You're shirtless on the cover. There's a lot of great stuff there. You can only see a small portion. Is there's something, that one piece of art that means more to you than any of the rest?
Man, I got all these growing up. I got every single thing except for one in Gainesville. All my buddies growing up that were a little bit older than me, Sleepy Dave and Little Mike and my buddy Old Dirty Rob, these guys, I grew up with them in the rock and roll scene. And all of our kind of like heroes at the time had just scratchy tattoos, and they started tattooing, and they were all good, every single one of them, like extremely good. And so when I started getting them like pretty young, and I'm just covered in them, like chest and back and just everything. And I just, when I was a kid, I kind of left home early and was kicking around and doing this and that. I just knew I would be one of these old guys that looked like an old sailor or something with tattoos all over them. But I just happened to be pretty lucky to have some good, some buddies that were into that thing and able to, ink me up, man. But it's not, I don't know, as far as, there's not any one. There's all kinds of things. I think they're all just from, my life and, from over the years being on the road and different moments in time, man, like of where I was at or what I was doing. And the, so, I mean, I think just, there's been some people like more than others, there's things that people like, and there's others that I mean, it's funny. I remember growing up and like when we used to go to a hotel or something, and if you had tattoos showing, they'd be like, no, 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 they wouldn't even let you get a room,
Right.
Now everybody's got tattoos,
Oh
like,
yeah.
and so, I mean, these guys, even hip hop guys, have them all over their face and everything. And
Yep.
it's crazy. I don't have any of that. I mean, I guess I'm like a Japanese businessman, man. I can hide it if I need to.
Right.
Some of those cats over in Japan, man, they got a whole suit on and they're just underneath, they're all completely,
Yeah.
covered. Man, my buddy Dave, I mean, this horse tattoo he did years and years ago. I've got a pinup girl that, there's an alligator right there. I've got a
Oh,
pinup girl on this arm that he did single, needle, like, when I was like 19.
wow.
And I don't know, man. And it's some of those chest pieces, and my whole back is like a double-headed eagle and stuff. And it's like,
Uh,
that's a funny story. I was on the road. I came home. I wanted him to do that back piece. We just done a show, and he's, it's a long time, and it's obviously very painful and everything else. And I fell asleep. I fell asleep, and he woke
wow.
me up like, and 2 hours later, and he was like, "Hey, bro, hey, wake up, man! You gotta turn it over." And I'm like, "Huh?" And he said, "Man, I've never had somebody fall asleep getting a so I guess I like it, man. I don't
I
know.
guess. I noticed the horses in the front and the Bonnie Blue. I don't ever see that anymore.
Yeah, man. There's Bonnie Blue, and I got the army of the battle flag, which is a huge
Yeah.
thing these days.
Well,
And
yeah.
I never talk about it, but it's nothing. We're not racist. God, I've been kicked off of Facebook twice for this and that. And dude, I mean, my God, I have, the music we play comes from all things mixed together. My band, when I was in LA was, Steve Ferroni, Brandon Owens, two black guys,
Yeah.
Chris Cano, great drummer, Mexican dude. I never even thought about that. To me, growing up,
Right.
it was where I came from.
South.
My people fought for something, and I grew up with that. And it's been vilified so much. And I understand
Yeah.
everyone's point of view on it all the way around, but to me, it has absolutely nothing to do with that.
Right.
And it's caused so many problems. But man, I can't stand racist stuff. I mean, growing up, there wasn't any more of it down here than there was anywhere else. I've seen more of it in Philadelphia and in California than I did in Florida or Alabama. But if I hear somebody calling somebody something because of the color of their skin, man, I will throw down on them in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
And so it's not always, you look at somebody like me and you think one thing. Well, that's just like looking at somebody else and thinking that they're robbing a store, because of the color of their skin. And
Right.
it has nothing to do with any of that. And it really doesn't. It's been perceived that way. And I understand that.
Yeah, that's a shame though.
It really is, man. It really is, because it's a culture and it's what we come from. And it's kind of like somebody asking, I've had people say, well, why don't you, you should edit that, or you should take that out. And it's like, well, I have a video that has 100,000 views. I'm not going to take it down, and I'm not going to replace the flags with, I don't know what, rainbow flags or something, or unicorns.
I mean,
it is what it is. And it, all those things were just around at the time. And I don't know, man. Music, the greatest thing about rock and roll is it came from the mixing of, of the black stuff coming off the plantation, and the Scottish and Irish stuff, in the German and stuff that we came, and all mixed together, and it created this beautiful thing that had more to do. Rock and roll brought down race barriers more than anything. It brought down communism, for God's sake. People were like, well, I don't know about those people down the road, but I like their music.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, and music is a universal. It's a universal language, and it brings people together. I've seen it over and over and over again. All kinds of people. And I mean, that is who you are. You're a Southern guy. It's your roots. That's it. Like you say, it's your culture.
They come from, like, the Bonnie Blue. That's the Scottish, flag of Scottish rebellion. The first, you have a country right now that everyone is praising for fighting for its independence, and there's nothing different about either of those situations that we're talking about. I mean, people fighting for what they believed in at the time, and the world's changed, and I understand, but it's definitely a thing, man. It's a thing, where I never say anything politically. I'm not political, man. I'm not. I'm a musical and spiritual person, and I think politics is a trap. However you feel about it, because my side is this and my side's that, and it's really screwed up our country and the idea of our country. and it doesn't have a place in rock and roll.
Yeah.
So nothing, if somebody sees, some people just get offended by everything,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, and you can't help somebody like that, and I under, it's definitely, it's an interesting time for all that, and it's a interesting time to navigate it. But I guess
It
in a
is.
certain way, we're having to deal with what a lot of other people have had to deal with. So, you
Yeah.
know, I
Yeah.
mean, the heart of rock and roll and everything comes from blues, and it came straight off the plantation from a bunch of old black dudes tying a string to two nails and killing it,
Yes.
and
Yes.
just with nothing and with every limitation in the world. And that's a beautiful thing, man. Anybody that could hate that's got a hole in their soul.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's about love and passion and all of that, man, and feeling.
Absolutely.
You got to put your heart and soul into things, man. And
Yeah, man.
yeah, it's
There's
pretty
a-
great.
there's
I
a-
know. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, there's a lot of flags then. We're gonna have to take the American flag and the British flag and the French flag and the Portuguese flag and the Spanish flag and the Mexican flag and everybody's flag down, because everybody had violence and racism and slavery and everything else. So,
Yep.
so either we just, we're gonna have to just put the white flag up. And
Yeah.
we're gonna have to all surrender to each other.
Yes, yes, that's definitely. I know you got a busy day, and I'm not going to keep you too much longer, but I got to ask you if you could sit down and have a conversation with one person, one living person, who would that be?
Oh man, that's a heavy question. Just musically or just anyone?
And just anyone. Yeah.
Um, oh, it's funny, a lot of my heroes have passed away in the last few years, and I've got to meet a lot of them musically. And, anyone alive. Well, you're really stomping me with that question. I've never been asked that before.
Okay.
I can think of I can think of 100 people that have passed away that I'd like to talk to, but that's, you always want what you don't have, I guess.
Right,
But,
right.
yeah, man. I have to say, probably just, I'd like to get together with the rest of the guys, not just one person, but the rest of the people that were all involved with the whole, 70s and 60s and 70s rock and roll thing that turned into Southern rock, and hear the rest of the stories that I haven't heard, man, about all the ragtag way that everybody came up with this thing, and through limitation, and it's just, I could probably list 10 different musicians I'd like to get in a room with, but
Yeah.
I know what picking one is really hard. It's fun. It's amazing how many, like I was just talking about with blues, how it came out of limitation, and and then it moved from down here up to where you're at into Chicago, and
Right.
and all those areas, and man, it'd be nice to be able to sit down with some living members of those guys' families, like Muddy Waters,
Yeah.
and just Billie Holiday and Hank Williams. I bet some of Hank's family, but just different people that knew those people that were there for the regular stuff, and
Right.
to know what really drove those people. And I think that's probably
Okay.
it'd have to be a
Yeah.
the family members of some of my heroes. Spending time with people like Johnny Sandlin, who was in Hourglass with Dwayne and Greg Allman when they were kids and produced all those records at Capricorn. And just saying, spending all that time with Johnny Sandlin and hearing all like the real stories about what went on, not the fantastic stories that were the ones that were on the documentaries and stuff, but what really happened, and how they really did things, and how ragtag it really was, and nobody had any money, and everybody was just had this dream of doing the thing. And I think like it just made things seem more possible, and I think maybe less, like the world's become really fantastic, like everybody's worried about what whoever Kim Kardashian is doing, or whoever the hell. Well, I've been in rooms with those people, literally those people, and they're just like everybody else. So I think like the fact that everything has to be fantastic all the time is maybe like detrimental because kids are really getting into music, and they need to feel like they can do it. They need to feel like I can do this. I don't have to sell a million records to be the most famous person in the world, but I have something to say. And being around those people and their family and everything, it really, I think, is important to, just to see that they were just people like us and, like me and you, man.
Yeah. It's funny you say that. I talked to an author yesterday, Paul Brannigan. He wrote a story about Eddie Van Halen.
Oh, wow.
But he was saying Michael Anthony is the quiet guy, and he served that kind of purpose to where he was the regular working man's musician where, hey, I could do that. Maybe David Lee Roth a little over the top. I'm not that guy,
Right.
Where Eddie Van Halen, wow, I'll never be that good or whatever.
Yeah.
But Michael Anthony, he was doable. I could maybe be that guy.
Exactly, man. And I think like rock and roll and especially country music has lost that, man. All these people are like fantastic, like this and that. And it's like, when I was growing up and it was like, Hank Williams Jr. and like Greg Allman or Tom Petty or whatever, kind of like people that I knew that I grew up with. And it's funny, but Michael Anthony, man, what a player and what a harmony singer, dude. Like, he looked like he looked like the guy that was going to fix your transmission.
Right.
Like, pull it in here, but he was kicking ass. I mean, like the super amazing singer.
Yeah.
And man, I mean, same thing, a bunch of ragtag kids. And it doesn't matter, man. I know some guys that are in all kinds of different bands, friends of mine that were in the Chili Peppers and stuff like that. And they're a bunch of like, ragtag dudes that, are just regular people that, when you meet them, and it's like, it doesn't matter, what kind of thing you're in. I think, I don't know, maybe the heart of the whole thing is just regular people with limitations, man, they're going to make it happen no matter what. And, too many millionaires, man, not just in music, like in the world, like all of our politicians are millionaires and all of our heroes are billionaires or whatever. Well, you know what? All of us in the middle, man, are the people that made it happen, and on the bottom. And especially in music, I of all the people that I met playing music, all my heroes, I don't think any of them started with several million in the bank.
So, right.
Yeah,
and, I think that's kind of the spirit of it, even now, it's that middle and lower that is making it happen. That's where the feeling and emotion and all of that comes from, for sure.
I remember talking to Lucinda Williams about that when we were out on the road, just saying like, she was like making a joke and saying like, honey, like if you do this and you keep doing it, something's wrong with you, and like, but it's true. Like, and I said, man, that's the untold story of rock and roll, is like, I grew up poor and something went wrong, or somebody died, or there's something that I need that drove me to keep doing this thing. And man, I think, I don't know, but not anything against people with money. My old drummer,
right,
Richard, who passed away, he was from the Jack Daniels family, and all this, had more money than anybody. I wouldn't want his problems. I would have wanted his problems, man.
Yeah.
But so that's a whole different thing. But he wasn't struggling to pay his electric bill.
Right.
And that's the thing. It's like, well, get out there and keep doing it. And you're doing it because you do it, and something's driving you. And, and that's, man, you can hear it. You can hear it in when something's real and from the heart, or, when somebody's made it up and polished it and pumped a bunch of money into it, man. And, this is stuff I guess you're not supposed to talk about during interviews or something, but it's true, man. You can hear fluff, fluff.
Yep.
Whether it's, country rap fluff or pop fluff or rock and roll fluff, or if it's going, man, that really hits me, and I've always just tried to stay in that thing and from the heart.
That's just it. I listened to Keys to the Kingdom, and I'm getting full on Kenneth Brian, man.
Awesome.
That is a piece of you, and it's really pretty cool to have, for sure.
Man, I appreciate that.
You coming to see me in Chicago?
Man, I would love to get back up there again. We played last time we were there. We played I think we opened up at the Vic for Lucinda.
All right.
Double door there. I think that place is gone now, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
That was an awesome place. I'd love to get back up there. We'll be at Summerfest again in Milwaukee, so hopefully we'll get to Chicago too. But man, I've spent a lot of time up in there. My Uncle Bob, like I said, he owned a country and western place up in Palace Hills.
Ah,
and he was from West Virginia, and he was a bartender, and he ended up buying in and buying out, owning this bar, and everybody played there, Johnny Cash, and so we used to go up and hang out with him, and it's a neat place, man. It really is. It's
yeah.
unlike anywhere else, and I just went through it on the way back from, God, I think Summerfest or Sturgis or wherever we were coming from,
Okay.
and I got family up around there, and yeah, man, that's a cool place. It's a cool place for music, and one of my favorite
Yep.
guitar players ever, jazz guy Bobby Broom, is
Okay.
from Bobby Broom, black dude from I think he's from Chicago, but I went into Fitzgerald's or one of those jazz clubs when we were staying
Yeah.
there, and he had this deep blue organ trio. It was him and this guy Chris Foreman, a blind dude on B3, and it was the coolest thing I ever seen. I bought all Bobby's records since that, so I always like to just, I like bebop and jazz a whole lot too. I drive everybody crazy with it on the road. But he's an amazing player, and a lot of great players from around there, man.
Yeah, and you say, blind dude playing a B3. I mean, just that alone
Oh,
is
I mean,
just, there's
amazing, man.
so much feel and man, it's just awesome. That's
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, well, we'd love to see you up here, man. And Milwaukee, I'll keep my eyes open for that one. And it's not that far. It's a couple hours. I'll come down and see you, man.
Whenever we're up there, man, and wherever we're playing in Chicago, I will let you know. I'd love to get back up to what's that other place? What's the Irish? Is it the Abbey? Is that in?
Yeah, that is a place.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't know if it's still there.
Man, last year, because of the pandemic and everything, so
Yeah.
many places shut down. It's a shame.
It
really
is.
is. A lot of the places we grew up playing. So hopefully there's still enough out there that are going to keep it moving.
Yeah, and I know we got a lot of them still here. There's a
man.
lot of great venues. So yeah, definitely. Yeah, come see me, man. I'll keep my eyes open, and I look forward to it, man.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks for having me, dude. And
Thank you.
I'm glad you liked the record. And I don't know, just appreciate everybody listening and just supporting music and live music, man. And I think it really helps everybody in the time that we're in.
Yeah,
It's a thing that can help people get through these times and get it out of their mind and just go out and lift up for a while. So
yeah, and thanks for the uplifting experience with this record, man. And there are links below, so you can go buy the record, visit you online, and I can't thank you enough for your time, man. Kenneth Brian, awesome.
Man, thanks for having me, dude.
All right, you're always welcome. Doors always open, man.
Thank you.
All right, be well. Take care.